Hi, in this episode I'll be talking to Ross McLaren, one half of the Outdoors Ross and Rachel Instagram profile. Over a brew we chat about how and why Ross got into work with BBC for the online TV channel called The Social. Do you fancy a brew? Have you got a brew?
No, however, as it is with a brew, I did decide to...
Oh, did you come with an iron brew? You absolute legend.
I came with an iron brew. I had to, I did. I felt like I had to make a special... It was just an excuse, really.
What have you got in your fridge? How many bottles of water have you got in your fridge? That's when you know you're a winner. You've made it then, haven't you?
Right, shall we do a... Right, and here is our fridge. Welcome to Cribs and MTV Cribs, and in our fridge is 3 bottles of milk. Oh, we've also got almond milk, and we've got coconut milk. It actually makes us look pretty healthy, but we're really not.
So your 100th dive?
Oh.
Your 100th dive's got to be naked.
Yes, I know, I'm aware of this. However, I'll be honest, I shat out it. I'll be quite honest, I shat out it. For the 200th though, I did drink a can of Coke, which was very interesting. So that was an interesting one, actually.
Tell me about it. I'll have to have a do with that.
Oh, it was one of the girls actually that I dived with, and we went out to a place nearby, and they says, look, we need to do something special for your 200th, and I said, you're right. So she produced this can of Coke in a straw, and I thought, how am I meant to do this? It was interesting, and it was actually far easier than you would think, I must say. You do have to kind of pull it open and then put your finger over the top and then get the straw in, and then, it was a bit of a faff, but I managed.
Mate, it's a YouTube video in the making, isn't it? How to drink a can of Coke.
I think that's the next one. I think that's going to have to be the next one.
Mate, that's going to tip me over the edge, isn't it? I'll get 4,000 hours then. I'm in the money.
If you tag Coca-Cola in it as well, hey, you never know.
Mate, I might have my own Ferrari.
Well, with the name McLaren, I was always hoping that, somebody might pick it up and go, oh, do you fancy a wee McLaren? But unfortunately not, no. Not yet.
Tight bastards, aren't they?
I know, arseholes. Total arseholes. Let's go for it.
So, Ross McLaren, or Outdoors Ross and Rachel, as I've come to know you really on Instagram and that. Well, welcome to Fancy a Brew podcast. If you want to just give us a little bit of an intro to who you are, what you're about, what you do.
Okay, I'm Ross, obviously, and I'm a diver from the west coast of Scotland, and I am probably an expert in absolutely nothing at all. I'm just somebody that really enjoys diving here in Scotland and really talking about it and trying to maybe just raise the profile of it a little bit.
Cool. Well, we've probably come across each other through actual Northern Diver posting other people's pictures on Instagram showing their kit off.
Their stuff,
So I probably saw you at first off that, and then looking deeper, seen you done some work on the BBC, which I am pretty jealous of, and would love to know how you get into it and see if there's a market for what I kind of do around here. There probably isn't because of where I am, but how did you get involved with them?
Do you know, I remember talking to, it was almost like a researcher, and it must have been again through social media, and we got talking to one of the researchers, and it's on their social media platform called The Social.
Yeah.
So it's really based from kind of young people between 18 and 34, and The Social does a whole host of things in Scotland. So it's a way of showcasing talent, I suppose, talent in Scotland and interesting things. So they do a whole load of stuff. So it goes from like kind of comedy, so kind of comedians starting out, to talking about issues like gender inequality and gender identity, to things like, scuba diving and hill walking, and they talk about kind of mental health, etc. So it's a really kind of broad array of things that they do. And obviously, it's either I've emailed them or they've picked me up. I can't actually genuinely remember how it came about.
Yeah.
And basically, they says, look, we'd be really interested in scuba diving in Scotland. It's something that, it's not really been kind of talked about. It's not really looked into. And we kind of started talking from there, and I got invited up to the studios in Glasgow. And that was probably one of the most nerve-wracking things ever. You're sitting in this big fancy building, and I'm sitting in my suit and my tie, not my shirt and my tie from work, and I'm waiting and I'm going, and then you get your wee badge that says Ross McLaren BBC on it, and somebody comes and picks you up, and you go up into the kind of the meeting room and everything, and it's like, that's where they do the news, and that's where they do like the Scottish version of the One Show, and
Yeah.
wow, okay, this is quite impressive. So no, it just kind of came about, I think, really through social media. It's the power of social media, I think, really. And we got talking, and they said, like, what kind of things, do you want to talk about? And one of the things was kind of anxiety and stuff, and scuba diving. And a lot of people, when they think about scuba diving, might bring on anxiety. If you say to people, well, let's go scuba diving, quite a few people will start to kind of feel their heart racing and stuff like that. Whereas I've found the opposite happens with myself. Going scuba diving really calms me down. It is like, it's pretty Disney when you say it, but you enter a whole new world. I think actually that was a line I used in one of the videos, one of the first videos actually. And it just totally takes you away for those 45, 60 minutes, and all you have to kind of focus on is yourself, your breathing and your body kind of thing, and you can just enjoy it. So the kid says, look, do you feel comfortable talking about it? And I says, well, yeah, it's taken a long time to accept it and taken a long time to kind of come to terms with it. And I'm not horrendous in any way, kind of shape or form. There are far worse people than myself, but I thought, yeah, okay, if we can put it out and somebody listens to it and thinks, oh, okay, right, fair enough, then it helps. We kind of said earlier that when you talk about things, just before we kind of started recording properly, that when you talk about things, it sometimes is nice to hear that other people feel the same as you.
Yeah.
Things like anxiety and mental health and stuff, and fears, really. What you think that it's only you that feels it, when really, when you talk about it, it makes a big difference. And this is coming from someone that spent probably a good 20, 23 years just saying, oh no, I'm fine, I'm okay, it's all good, it's just Ross being Ross. So yeah, it came about as that. And then what I'd said to them was, I don't want it to focus on the anxiety, I don't want it to define me, I don't want it to be the woe is me all the time. So the other aim was with the BBC, as I said, to highlight scuba diving in Scotland and to try and say, look, let's be honest, you don't say Scotland and think scuba diving, and you don't say scuba diving and think Scotland, do you?
No.
But actually there is quite a few really decent dive sites in the whole of Scotland, and not that far away either. So it was really a combination of both of those things brought together.
Touching on the locks that you dive up there, whilst they are well known for not having the best visibility and viz dropping really quickly, if you compare that to what's on my doorstep, the lakes, although I think there's only one actual lake in the Lake District, I think they're all waters and whatever.
Yeah.
But there's very little life in them. Whereas where you go, you've got all the anemones, you've got starfish, you've got all sorts of critters. It's just amazing, isn't it?
I think we become very numb to what you're used to. So what I've found with a lot of Scottish divers is we kind of just say, oh, let's go up to Loch Long. Oh, I was there last weekend. Do we have to go there? Can we go somewhere different? I think we take for granted what we actually have here. When we think about what we have on our doorstep, so about 35, 45 minutes from Glasgow, you've got Loch Long and Loch Fyne, and the amount of life in both of those lochs is unbelievable. You're right about the visibility. The visibility can be shocking. It can be horrendous. But there is so much life. I mean, this summer alone, my goal was to see a nudibranch and get a picture of an octopus. And I'm not kidding you, I think I wet myself when I found that octopus in Loch Long. Yeah. I've never seen an octopus in a sea loch, and it was just brilliant. So, yeah, we are, I think, sometimes a bit numb to what's already around us. And we take it for granted, we definitely do. But Loch Long and Loch Fyne have so many dive sites on them that offer so many different things. They are unbelievable. They really, really are.
Because it's not so far away from you, do you struggle when you're in location to get any sort of airfield? Or would you be sufficient enough to go there for the period of time you're going to be?
There are. So from my house, it's about an hour and a bit to Loch Long, but there's so many dive centres in and around Glasgow. In fact, one of our friends actually own a new they've just kind of started up really. They've opened up a dive school and stuff. They're a raid one, so they're called West Coast Diving, and they're really close to us. They're only about 15 minutes drive, so they're not really near to the lochs as such. They're still a good hour and a bit away. But there is dive centres within Glasgow city centre as well that you can go to. Don't think there's any airfills around. There might be Loch Fyne, there might be something in Loch Fyne. I don't want to say for definite, but there's certainly places. Oban as well, so Loch Fyne and Loch Long aren't too far away from Oban. So if you're coming up, if you were coming up, like for yourself coming up, and you wanted to stay in and around Loch Lomond, you might struggle without having to do that wee bit extra distance, either back to Glasgow or to Oban. But if you base yourself in Glasgow, it's far easier, and it's not too far a drive to get there, in all honesty. But there's definitely places to be going.
So, have you got any more plans with the BBC? Have they got anything else for you?
Ongoing? So, I think at the moment it's ongoing, definitely ongoing. We have got, I think I've got 4 episodes out. So I did one, the kind of introduction, the anxiety one, which was the first. I did one in the wrecks as well. I don't know if you've ever had a look at any of the wrecks in the Clyde, but there are some absolutely phenomenal wrecks in the Clyde. And there's a boat charter, a good friend, he runs Rexpeditions, and he's out of the kind of Holy Loch at Dunoon, and he kind of can pick up at Largs and Inverkip, which is just on the kind of west coast, just again not far from Glasgow. So we did a video on one of the ships, the Aka, which is a vessel that sank, a cargo vessel that sank in the 50s, which is phenomenal. There's a few other wrecks in there that I've not done just yet. So we've done the anxiety video, the Aka video. Oh God,
Seals and
the
then
seals,
the bombs at Loch Striven.
Oh, the bouncing bombs in Loch Striven are absolutely unbelievable. That was, in terms of diving, probably not the most exciting of them, right? I mean, they are literally just big balls, metal balls sitting at 30 metres, 35 metres. But the history that goes with it was just, so going through the kind of research and stuff, although I teach chemistry, I always loved history and I loved the Second World War. So to kind of I always had an interest in things like the bouncing bombs and stuff like that, the dam busters. So to do the kind of research into it and to kind of see that these were tested there and to actually go down and see these pieces of history was just phenomenal. And there's literally hundreds of them, like littered the bottom of Loch Striven. So again, it was Rexpeditions, we did that, and again, absolutely superb diving. It's something that if you ever come to Scotland and you get the chance, I would definitely say, if you can get Jason, who's the guy that runs Rexpeditions, if you can get Jason at a time where he can do the Loch Striven bouncing bombs, definitely do it. Just to see you've done this, it's unbelievable.
It looked good. I mean, certainly the marine life that's around there.
It is. Everything's covered in something. Everything is covered in something at all, whether it's dead men's fingers or I don't actually know what they're all called. I just know. I'm not even going to pretend to be an expert, but everything's covered. And we've got another couple as well. So I did one on the SS Breeder, which is another cargo vessel at Oban.
Right.
One of my favourite dives. It's only probably about 9 to 10 metres to the deck level. So it's like really, it's available. Anyone can dive it. Really, it's a dead easy dive, and you can do the whole wreck on a dive, and it's just unbelievable. So I've got that one's coming out as well. And I actually went across to Arran. So the Isle of Arran is just literally the ferry terminal's 15 minutes from where we stay, and they've got a marine conservation place there called Coast. So it's the Community of Arran Seabed Trust. And basically, they are really in charge, or they have been really, what's the word? Fighting to kind of regenerate the seabed from overfishing and stuff like that. So for the past kind of 20 odd years, they've been doing this. So they've got a no-take zone. So it's literally the only no-take zone in Scotland.
Oh, yeah.
In Lamlash. It's the only part. and I decided, or we spoke to them and we said, look, we want to do something marine conservation, and I went across there and spent a weekend doing bits and pieces there, and it was absolutely phenomenal. It really, really was. So 4 done, I think, 2 in the pipeline, and there's a possible other one in the works if I can. If I can find the time, and if we're allowed out of lockdown, if Nicola Sturgeon ungrounds us for a little while.
It is weird how they call them the devolved states, don't they? But how each of them we're all doing our own different thing.
Do you know?
In some respects, all affected exactly the same.
I know. Do you know? I try not to get political.
Yeah,
I do. I don't always agree with what Westminster do, and for the start of it, I was thinking, yeah, Nicola Sturgeon is doing exactly what she needs to do. I'm happy. That sounds good. But the kind of latest restrictions, you just think you're just changing it because you can. You know, England's got three levels, so Scotland have to have 5 levels. You think, really? Can we not just come together and just? I tell you what. See if all the leaders and all the MPs acted the way they did in my classroom, they'd be at the door before they even get in. It's embarrassing. The kids don't even act like that in school.
Yeah.
Like, Christ's sake. But yeah, it is a bit strange.
Well, this lockdown for me is nothing at all like the last one.
No, I agree. It's the same for us. I think partly because obviously I'm now back in school and working, and realistically, doesn't feel much different.
No.
You know, we have a few measures in place, but realistically...
Yeah, well, the streets are still the same, as busy. I mean, obviously, half the shops are shut, but the roads are still as busy.
No.
There's still idiots outside the local butty shop in the morning with no mask on.
Nothing, yeah.
I did a discussion with a guy on Monday, and he's like, nah, there's no such thing as COVID. I'm like, mate, are you for real? Are you actually for real?
Oh, I know. You could get into a discussion alone about that. I mean, it really is unbelievable, but...
Yeah. Well, let's suck it off and get back to the
dining.
Right. Talking about your BBC work then, what I've watched of you do quite a bit to camera as opposed to you just dubbing it over, which is dead easy to dub over anything in it. What I'm trying to get at is it screams out my anxieties, which are I'm not comfortable in front of a camera, and certainly I'm well aware that my videos are lacking that sort of someone in front of the camera.
It's not nice. So I always thought it would be relatively easy. I mean, let's be honest, as a teacher, you spend your life presenting yourself in front of a class, and it's easy to talk to somebody like this, but when it's just the camera, honest to God, the number of outtakes where it starts me with, hi, I'm Ross and welcome to another day of, oh, fuck that, right, fuck, right. Honestly, it is so difficult. What I tend to do is I tend to write a script. So for the BBC, we come up with an idea. So the idea is diving with seals. And then what they ask for is, can you send us a script, please? So I then send them a script of what I want to say. So it is actually scripted out to an extent. So anything that I say, they have to fact check as well. So everything that I say in the video has been properly fact checked to the point where, in fact, the one about the breeder, which isn't quite out yet, I was talking about how it sank, and it was a German Heinkel bomber that came across, and what happened was it dropped, well, four bombs went off around it and it sank. And I mentioned in it that it was 4 500-pound bombs. And what happened was the producer at the BBC went away and did his research and came back and says, now, are you sure, Ross, it was 500? Because I've got 550. And you think, wow, okay, they really fact check it.
Yeah.
So I kind of write out a script, and then I kind of write it as I might say it, and then it really goes out the window, to be quite honest with you. You sit in front of the camera and you go, right, let me read this line. Okay. And then you start going and you think, oh, fuck, right, start again.
It's almost you've read it and forgotten it before you finish the sentence. Exactly the same.
Exactly. I know what I want to say, and I know where I need to finish what I'm saying, but I forget all the bit in the middle. it is so difficult. I don't think I've got it right yet. I find it really off-putting. There's another girl that does. She's a diver and a marine biologist, Christina, and she's on actually the Isle of Cumbria, which isn't far from here. Again, it's quite close. And she started doing videos for the BBC Social as well. I don't know if you've checked those ones out. They're really good. She does it like a tops trumps. So she takes two animals and she talks about like things like their aggressiveness and their sexual prowess and stuff. And she does it really like that. And she's a lot more, I would say, fun, to be honest with you. She's far funner in her presentation than I am, and she's so good. But she does all her filming outside, so she does it when she's sitting in the water with a wetsuit on and stuff like that. You know, with the ocean and the sea behind her. Whereas I'm sitting with like my blue background behind. That's what I get. But there's some really good presenters, and it's really difficult as well. I think it's a skill that, and it takes a long time, and I've still not quite got it yet. I hate doing it.
I think the more people in the industry that I speak to about this reduce my anxiety levels to where I wouldn't say I'm anxious doing it in my garage when I'm doing my little how-to niff after triv. But when I went up to do Basking Shark Scotland at the beginning of September, and I aimed to do like a bit more of a documentary into what I was doing, more of a vlog.
I just say we're so jealous of that, by the way, Rachel. And I've dived with Shane a few times. He's at Basking Shark or dive at Argyll and Oban. Rachel and I are talking about doing some Basking Shark stuff with him. I was so jealous when I saw you were going up doing that. But yeah, sorry, I just wanted to say.
Not as jealous as I was, because when we were on the ferry back to Oban, the lads that stayed behind, they saw him on the day. We never saw anything all week, did we?
That just sounds like Scotland in a nutshell.
Yeah. Even me getting my camera out, or my phone out, and chatting into my phone, which you see a lot of people doing now, it was so alien to me because I just don't do it that way.
I can't do it. So when I film talking parts, I take myself up the stairs. So I'm sitting with Rachel actually at the moment in the living room. But I feel that that's okay because there's somebody else talking back to me at the moment.
Yeah.
But when I was filming the stuff for the BBC, the kind of talky bits, I take myself upstairs, or I wait till Rachel's away out because I feel like a complete tool talking to this camera. You know, even Rachel, who I'm comfortable doing anything and everything around, I feel completely, I feel completely stupid sometimes, to be quite honest with you.
I'm the same.
I refuse to do it in front of anybody. We tried it once in Arran when I was doing the video for Arran. And I thought I'll do it on the slipway. There's a nice slipway at the outdoor centre there. Yeah. And I thought I'm going to do it with the backdrop of the Holy Isle and everything. And it just didn't feel. Nah, I just thought no. There is so much that it's not as easy as like the presenters. See all these kind of presenters and stuff like that do any kind of presenting at all. You think that's a lot harder than it looks. It's so much harder than it looks.
I watched one, and I'm going to say it was somewhere in Europe. Let's just, for argument's sake, say it was in the middle of a big square, a big plaza in Italy or somewhere like that. And there was hundreds, if not thousands of people in this area. Oh. And the cameraman must have been shooting from above with a really good lens. So he zoomed right in on the guy that was talking, so you could only see this one guy. And then when it panned out, and there's thousands of people surrounding, I'm like, mate, you've got some absolute balls doing that.
Because they don't see the camera that's away up there, up in the sky, so they just see this crazy guy standing in the middle. If you're like in the middle of like I'm imagining in my head like a square in Venice or something like that.
Yeah, that's it, exactly that.
You know, and you just think that fucking crazy English guy's talking to him. Maybe he's from God. You just think, oh God, you've got to take your hat off to any presenter that can do that, because I don't know if I could, to be honest.
Well, I think the main piece of advice I've been given is just keep doing it until it becomes second nature. Like this now, my 46th proper episode, so I've done 3 others, so maybe let's call it 50 episodes, because I've done a couple of like bonus editions. It's more easy to do this now than it was, you know.
That's true. I'll be honest, the first video that I did, before I sent it to the beat, so what happens with it is I'll video it, I'll put all the diving clips together, and then what I'll do is I'll edit it myself. So I edit it into the video that I think it's going to be, and then I send it like that to the BBC.
Yeah.
And then they, if they like maybe repiece it together or cut bits out and stuff, so it's edited twice. So before I sent my first one to the BBC, I let Rachel see it, and I let my mum and dad see it, and I let my mother-in-law see it, and my brother-in-law. And I had to redo it again because the first thing my mum said to me was, "That's not you." She just went, "No, you can't. That's not you. It doesn't sound like you."
Yeah.
And I think when I watched it back, I get quite, you get upset, or you feel like it's a personal attack on you.
Yeah.
And then when I watched it back, after my mum had said to me, I thought, actually, she's right. I sound like a complete prize prick. So I did have to go back to it, and I did redo it, because sometimes you need to take a wee step back and go, no, that wasn't great, actually. But the more you do it, you're right. The more you do it, the easier it does get. I mean, I'm not saying I don't think I'm ever going to be good at it, but I enjoy doing it to an extent. And the message is more important, I think. I like to think that it's more about getting the message out as opposed to me, if that makes sense. Yeah. There is a narcissistic side to it as well. There's nothing, you've got to be honest and say, I quite like seeing myself and saying that I've done videos for the BBC. There's no point in saying, sitting here and say, oh no, I don't really like doing it. I do like doing it, and you do like seeing your face.
You wouldn't do it. You wouldn't be doing it full stop, would you, if you didn't enjoy it?
There's no point. But then again, it's got to be hard. I think anything in life, if it's worth it, sometimes you've got to kind of not struggle through things. That's not the right word, but nothing good ever comes easily. Really, let's be honest. I think
for me, one thing I've found, I'm not saying I massively love myself now, but I'm more at ease with myself. I'm less. I used to be hypercritical about how my hair was, or what the fit of my t-shirt was. Just silly little things that meant nothing to anybody.
Right. You're absolutely right. The first video I did, I went up the stairs. I should not be admitting this. I went up the stairs and I washed my hair before I did it, and I blow dried my hair, and I put a little bit of wax. I haven't put anything in my hair for years.
Yeah.
And I had it all sitting, and I was like, yeah, okay, that's good. By the time I did the last one, I'm like, fuck this, right, come on, get that cat. Actually, the last one that I did in Arran, I literally did it waiting on the ferry. I found a room, an empty room, as we were waiting on the ferry, and I just went, fuck it, I'm going to do it here. Like, I was in complete state, and I just thought, you know what, I'm quite comfortable with it. The video is not about me as such, so do you know what, bugger it. Yeah. Let's just go with it. You do. You learn to kind of get a little bit more at ease with yourself with it.
Yeah, it's definitely been a new turn of events for me, that, because that was one of my anxieties all the way through being a kid. Having ginger hair, it was always, you were the kid that got picked on, and the things they picked on were nothing, but they were everything as a kid. So that self-esteem just goes smaller and smaller. Like I said, I don't think I'm now 10 foot tall. I've got 3 legs. None of that.
No, absolutely right. I mean, I'm the same. You must have a bit of Scottish in you there if you're a wee bit of ginger there. You must have. But I get it at work as well. I mean, you do learn not to take yourself too seriously.
That's it.
Because when you start to take yourself too seriously, you do start to... You can't have a laugh. You've got to have a bit of a laugh in life. I mean, there's enough shit going on that do you really need to worry about how you look? I mean, who are you trying to... Who am I trying to impress, really? Realistically, who am I trying to impress here? I know that I've got a ginger beard and probably a bit of a ginger top. as my colleagues at work, Secret Santa's always something ginger related. So I've got a mug that says gingers aren't just for Christmas, they're for life. And I got a colouring book last year that says the Ginger Colouring Book, and it's like all ginger related things with sweary words in it, which is absolutely correct and absolutely up my alley, so to speak. So I totally get the ginger part of it as well. Yep. Yeah. All the best people are ginger.
Well, I guess something we've kind of got in common, probably not the brand of vehicle, but I'll not give you any grief for not having a Volkswagen. But I've always sort of wanted a camper van.
Yes.
And the opportunity to have a third vehicle is just not there for us. It's just not likely. So I've had a caravan. I had a really old caravan a while ago, and it was like 1960s. I rebuilt all the interior myself, and honestly, it was an absolute palace. You know, everyone was like, "Oh, how cool's your caravan? Let's come and, you know, we'll have a few beers in your caravan." But I've seen that you've been working on your van, haven't you? And you've converted it.
Well, you say I've been working on the van. Let's be clear here. I couldn't rewire a plug. Despite being a chemistry teacher, I don't think I could rewire a plug. So the camper van itself isn't actually ours as such. It's actually a family van. So what we did was, as a family, we were going to... We'd done a... Rachel, one of my anxieties was I like to do everything the same. Right, I like to go places that I know. I like to do things that I like, and I like to have everything. So when we started diving, the idea was actually, believe it or not, to go to the Great Barrier Reef. The idea was that we had family in Australia. We were going to go to Australia in the summer, and we would go and do the diving in the Great Barrier Reef. And fortunately, Rachel's dad fell ill, and we couldn't go, but we kept the diving up. So what we did was, instead of going to Australia, we went to Mallorca. We went to Santa Ponsa, and we found a phenomenal hotel in Santa Ponsa, and we found an absolutely outstanding dive centre in Santa Ponsa as well, called Zoea. So we went there first year, and we went there a second year, and we nearly went there a third year until Rachel went, "No, I am not going to the same hotel, to the same dive centre for 3 years in a row. We are going to go and do something different." And she says, "We're going to do a camper van trip." Now, I've never driven a van before, and I was like, "Oh God, no, this is not for me." She says, "Come on, let's try something different." So we hired a van for a weekend, and it was amazing. So we then hired the van for the summer and did the North Coast 500. So we did, obviously, it's become like the Route 66, obviously, of Scotland. Very touristy, but it was amazing. The best holiday we have ever had, and it was just the freedom of having the van. So when we came back, Rachel's dad had passed away a couple of years before, so obviously just after we went to Spain the first time. So our mum had we'd talked about things like family holidays and stuff like that, and what we eventually said was, look, maybe why don't we think about getting a van? Now Rachel and I aren't in the position to be buying a third van. So we kind of spoke to the family and says, look, what do you think? And we eventually decided as a family, right, okay, let's do this. So we did. We looked at the Volkswagens, you know, the stereotypical Volkswagens, and we would have loved to have got one, but not to the tune of an extra £5,000.
It's crazy, isn't it?
It's mental. You're paying for the badge. So the company that we hired the van from originally for the two first trips actually did conversions, and what they said was, look, if you can find a van, bring it to us, we'll convert it, or we can find a van, we can look for a van for you and give you prices and all that stuff. So we just said, look, you know what you're looking for, you know, what's suitable, what's not suitable. If you find something, let us know. So they came back to us, and actually our van is an XAA fleet van. And they came back to us with two. They came back to a Volkswagen version, yet again, bright yellow, and the Ford Transit. And they said, right, okay, here's your Volkswagen. It's a 65 plate. It's done 97,000 miles. It's XAA. It's been looked after. Good spec. That's like 15 grand. Here's a Ford Transit, XAA, 65 plate, done 95,000 miles, similar spec, and it's only 10,000. So I got a phone call from my mother-in-law saying, look, Ross, I know it's a camper van. I know it's a Volkswagen that most people have, but it's a difference of £5,000. And I went, that's not even a question. You go for the cheaper one. Mm-hmm. So we went for the Transit, and actually it turns out the Transit's slightly bigger, and it's just unbelievable. So we gave it to the guys at Tartan Campers, which is near us, and they converted it for us. I would love to say that I did the same as you, and I spent many an hour on it, lovingly putting it together and everything. But I can't hang a picture up. I phoned my dad to put up a picture. So I'm not even going to pretend and be macho and say, yeah, oh yeah, I did that myself. No, I got somebody else to do it for us, or the family got somebody else to do it, and it's just turned out unbelievable.
I bet it gives you a lot more freedom than
it
to
does.
try and book an hotel or.
It does. I mean, especially in the current climate. Obviously, you don't want to focus on COVID, but we're not going abroad anytime soon. Really, realistically, we're not going abroad anytime soon. But for Rachel and I, it means that we can pack the van on a Thursday night, come home from work on a Friday, and just literally dump the school stuff, get in the van and go. And we've done that a couple of times. We can go across to Arran. Like, as I say, we're only 15 minutes from the ferry, and that's what we did. We went to video the Arran one for the BBC. We took the camper van and we spent the week, we spent probably about 4 days, and it was unbelievable. It genuinely was. The freedom that a camper van gives you. And we know that we're lucky that we're in the position, or the family's in the position, that we could get one. But if there's one kind of holiday that I would suggest to folk is, go and try it. I mean, it is. And the thing is, we don't realise, it's a bit like what we said earlier about the sea locks and diving and stuff like that. You don't realise what's on your doorstep. You know, people come to Scotland from Japan, from China, from America, for seeing these amazing sights, and we're fucking off to like Ibiza. Not knocking it. I mean, fair play. That's what you want to do. Go for it. But when you think about it, I mean, the stuff that we've got, we did our honeymoon in Canada. We're really off topic for diving here, aren't we?
No, do it.
But when we went to do our honeymoon for Canada and went through the Rockies, it was unbelievable. And then we came back and we were driving through. I think we were actually driving to a dive site, believe it or not. There was a really decent dive site up past Glencoe called Slates. And the drive to there is the most magnificent drive that I've ever driven, and it's up there. We went to the Rockies and saw these amazing mountains. You drive across Rannoch Moor and through Glencoe, the Three Sisters. It is just stunning. And we sat at that time years ago and thought, why did we go all the way to Canada when this is on our doorstep? Obviously, you want to go to Canada and see it, but I think people don't realise just what's on their doorstep. And you know, lockdown's certainly shown us that as well. As much as we say, oh, you need to stay local, we still drive an hour to go for a hill walk. We still drive an hour to go for a dive. So when we were in the first lockdown, we could only literally walk out the door. We've discovered stuff like where we stay, walks that we can go to, and actually a couple of dive sites, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Maybe we couldn't have been diving. That's maybe a bit kind of that might be a little bit debatable, but we found like wee dive sites that actually, although maybe you're going to write an article about, they're still nice to get in the water, you know. So I think there's a camper van, things like camper vans really help you to, it gives you the freedom to go where you like, when you like. It's not for everybody, definitely not, but if you get the chance, go for it. Do it.
What I did find when I was looking through your Instagram earlier is, this is something I've properly learned. I'd heard this phrase, there's no such thing as bad weather, it's bad clothing.
Did you see that? Yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't. I thought that was like an army thing. I didn't realise Alfred Wainwright had actually wrote that.
It was. I mean, I yeah. I try not to say it's right. These you see all these people on Instagram writing like all these quotes and stuff, but that's one that really does like kind of resonate, because there is no such thing as bad clothing. Bad weather. It is inappropriate clothing. It's the same as diving. See, when it comes to diving in Scotland, I don't know if it's the same for yourself down south, but when it comes to about now, what you tend to find is divers put their kit away. All right, that's the dive season over. We're finished. Why? Oh, it's too cold. Well, no, there's no such thing as cold water. It's just the wrong undersuit that you've got on.
Yeah.
Go and get yourself a really good undersuit. I'm not saying it's not cold. I'm not actually saying it's cold. It is. And your face is fucking freezing when you come out. I mean, you really do look like a scalped arse. I mean, I don't know. Scalped means smacked people, and you're not allowed to smack kids anymore. But you do. Your face comes out like a scalped arse. But why do you put your kit away in the winter? Really? And it can be miserable. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, it's fucking fabulous. You know, it's always nice. But some of the best diving, certainly in Scotland, is in the winter.
The visibility is unlike the summer.
I don't know. There must be. I'm sure there's some kind of reason for it. It'll be to do with plankton and growth and all that stuff that I have no idea about. But the visibility I find in Scotland during the winter is so much better. Still hit or miss sometimes, but so yeah, that whole idea that Wainwright wrote, "There's no such thing as bad weather, just inappropriate clothing," it's true for everything.
Yeah,
we don't melt. We don't melt. Go and buy yourself a nice a jacket. It doesn't have to be. I'm a bit of one of these guys that's kind of all the gear and no idea. I'll hold my hands up and say, yeah, I like to have shiny new things and stuff. But go to Sports Direct and buy yourself a jacket or anything and get outside and enjoy it a little bit, because it does. It really helps. And we found, certainly during lockdown, getting outside helped our kind of anxieties and the feeling of kind of really claustrophobia, I suppose. Yeah. Well,
I think for me, I've kind of used this podcast in many respects to learn personally, without being, trying to hide that I'm trying to learn off my guests that I have on it. And a lot of them that are either technical divers, so they're in the water a lot longer, or people who are cold water divers, I'll always be pecking their head saying, how do you keep, get what hints and tips can you give me to keep warm? Because I'm literally the coldest person known to man. Not emotionally.
No.
But just as soon as that water temperature just drops, I'm feeling it and not enjoying it. So I do ask for tips, and certainly with the help of Northern Diver now, so that I help them develop that electrical vest that they brought out earlier on. I mean,
I've actually seen it. The guys at West Coast Diving, Scott and Ali, that run there, they are quite heavily, well, not heavily involved, but their suppliers, Northern Diving.
Yeah.
And I've seen it on the dive site. It looks cracking.
For us recreational divers that are just trying to do an hour in the water and stay warm enough to enjoy it, it's perfect for 80 or 90 quid.
Listen, you can go out and spend all the money that you want, and do you know what? I am one of these people that do. I put a lot of money into like diving gear and walking gear and stuff like that. But the way I think about it is, I don't drink, really. I don't smoke, and I don't gamble. I'd rather spend my money on that. Yeah, but absolutely. I wouldn't pay like £800 for a heated vest. So something at £80, that's perfect for the likes of you and I. It might not be for somebody that's going in an Arctic expedition.
No.
But it's not designed for that. It's at a point. That's what I like about Northern Diver as well. Their price point is perfect for the recreational diver. I mean, when I got, I changed from a rather large branded suit when we first started diving to a Northern Diver one, and the difference is unbelievable. We actually went down, Rachel and I went down to Northern Diver to get measured up. I'm an awkward size, and so is Rachel actually. So in the sizing charts online, I was like coming up as a large, and I'm going, I'm really not a large here. I'm at least a large relaxed, if not an extra large. I'm well aware of it. I'll hold my hands up. So I went down, and they were brilliant. We spent a good couple of hours there trying on different suits and stuff. And right, okay, we'll fix the cuffs for you. That's not a problem. Yeah, that needs a wee bit. Right, that's adjusting. We'll change those boots. That's not a problem. And for the price that you can pay thousands of pounds for a dry suit and stuff. But for the likes of Northern Diver, the price point is perfect. For what you get, it's unbelievable. There's a reason why there's so many people wearing Northern Diver kit. They know who their target market is.
But if you look at who outside of that target market, it's all commercial divers seem to be wearing them.
Yep.
They've got a huge military contract, so the military commercial divers are wearing their kit. So other than the fact that the north-south divide between them and O3, perhaps, you see all the southerners wearing O3 kit, all those northerners wearing Northern Diver kit.
I think they do, and their products are really, really good. I mean, I just think their service as well. See, their customer service is unbelievable. I unfortunately broke my zip. I say I broke it. I don't know how I broke it. Somebody broke it, shall we say? And it was probably about this time last year. And I sent it down, and it was back within about a week to 2 weeks, and that was just coming up to Christmas.
I tell you what, it's expensive though, isn't it? Having a new zip.
Oh no!
I did the same. It was 200 quid. 200 quid.
I just about cried when I realised it. I think I knew for a while. I'll be honest with you. I think I kind of knew it was on its last legs for a while, until we couldn't actually get me out of my dry suit after one of the dives, and I'm like, I need the toilet, and they're like, we can't actually get you out here. I'm going to have to cut you out, and I'm like, don't do that. So eventually we kind of kept yanking it, and eventually it's like, yeah, you're not going for a second dive. So it is, but I think that they've been really good. The other brand that I really quite like is Fourth Element. I think their thermals are second to none. I think the Arctic and the Arctic Expedition stuff are absolutely unbelievable. I mean, you can buy. I use obviously the Arctic stuff, and I use it with my Northern Diver, and I'm not really one that feels the cold. I'll quite happily smash the ice and just go for it.
Yeah.
Pardon me, but I've never found a cold dive so far. The only thing I find is my hands get quite cold.
Yeah.
I don't know about what you use for gloves, but one of the things I find is between dives is trying to get my gloves back on. And the best thing is it's the waterproof gloves that's got the zip on it.
Yeah, I've got them.
That is the best. That is the best. Unless you're wearing dry gloves, obviously with the system, they're the best things ever. See, just having that zip that you don't have to try and.
Yeah. Do you ever take like a little flask of hot water with you, so you can fill your glove up after the first dive before the second one? So you put your hand in. Not only does it slip in, but it's lovely and warm.
Well, can I be honest and say that having a wife that is a diver but isn't diving is very nice, especially when she's got about the same size of hands and the same size of head as you. So what's actually happened recently is I've been taking Rachel's stuff with me, which nearly went wrong because I had to use her knife at one of the dives because I might have maybe slightly sort of lost hers at one point. So no, I haven't done that yet because I'm in the lucky position where I can steal my wife's stuff at the moment. Yeah. But I know what a lot of the guys in the club do is they use like the diesel gloves. I don't know if you've ever seen anyone do.
Where you get at a petrol station?
Yeah. So what they do is after the first dive, what they'll do is they'll put the diesel gloves on, and then it slides inside. It slides in much easier. So the old boys in the club have a stash of diesel gloves at the back of the pickup truck. That every time they go for diesel, they just lift a handful.
Well, one of the lads who must follow this podcast, and he bought one of my mugs off me a couple of weeks ago. Steve Verry or Scuba Verry, he is on it.
I think he did a video or something as well.
Yeah, he did. He's just started doing a few videos on YouTube, and one of them was that. And I'd never thought of it because I wear dry gloves generally, and I have sort of upgraded the undergloves and the overgloves for winter, so they're much thicker. I'll be honest, I don't know what the big shout out is about dry gloves at all. I'm no other than more dexterous with my camera.
Yeah, I can't really comment. I don't know. I haven't used them before. I know Scott and Ali that we're friends with. They use them. I don't see the point in changing. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I quite like what I'm using. I mean, don't get me wrong. As I say, I'm very much all the gear and no idea. No idea. I like to change things, but I've never found an issue with the kind of waterproof gloves. So no. And I've seen people. I've seen like some of them kind of struggling to get the cuffs done, and it's not quite sitting properly. And you've got to remember to take a pair of actual thermal gloves underneath. And if you've got a wee nick in the glove, the marigolds, I think that's what they call it. If you've got a nick in that, I think, can I be bothered with that on top of everything else? No. Everyone, each to their own. No, do you know that? I think with diving, it's very much a. I think you talked about it about Ali, your wife, as well, wasn't it? That you've got to be comfortable with your own stuff. I think you talked about one point. She really started to feel comfortable with her own stuff, and I think that's true for everyone. You find what works for yourself. So what works for me might not work for somebody else. I like my kit. I know Scott and Ali like their dry gloves. Hey, go for it. Whatever.
Sorry to interrupt this episode to drop another plug for my Patreon account, but I do spend several hours on each episode in the search for new guests, the recording, post-production, the advertising, and sometimes days on my YouTube videos. So to help me keep up with its production and the frequency of releases, I'm asking for you to become a sponsor and Patreon of the Are You a Scuba Diver? Fancy a Brew podcast. When you become a supporter, not only will you have my undying appreciation for helping to support the podcast, but you'll be able to take advantage of some of the many tiered benefits that come with it, some of which includes official merchandise. If you'd like to become a patron, go to www.patreon.com/FancierBrew. There you'll see all the many levels of subscription and how to join the Fancier Brew community. So without further ado, let's get back to this episode.
I get a lot of pelters at the moment. I'm currently diving on a twin set, but it's not really a twin set. It's more just two 12s banded together in an AP valves tech wing. And then I'm diving in independence, and a lot of people turn up to dive sites and say, "Why are you not in a manifold?" That's not the way to do it. And I'm like, well, it works for me.
But you're no different to me diving side mount, really.
I mean, I'm sure there are. As I say, I'm not an expert in anything. I'm not an instructor. I'm not, I've done 250 dives. So there's people that have done far more dives than I have. So but for me, it works. I don't have necessarily not the time, but maybe the time to go and do another course on it. But it's the same as yourself, as you say. What's the difference diving side mount to independent 12s? And I'm sure there are positives and negatives for both, and I'm not disputing that at all. But I find it's worked for me for the past year and a bit, and I don't want to change it. I'm quite happy how I am. But the amount of pelters I get from folk in the dive sites and stuff like that, and it's like every now and again there's some guys. There's quite a good GUE crowd up in Scotland.
Is there?
I say GUE there. I didn't say GUI because you don't like GUI. There's a really good group of guys up there as well. So the guy Andy has messaged a couple of times, and there's a guy and to say, look, why don't you come along and give it a go? And I'm like, yeah, you would hate me. You guys would absolutely hate my setup. It's like mismatched regs and it's independence and stuff. But I think that is something that I've kind of thought about, maybe having a wee look into it and, at some point improving myself kind of thing. But
well, if you do want a proper twin set, I've got one spur. Now I've got this. Now I've just got this rebreather. I'm thinking, am I ever going to put that twin set on my back ever?
Rachel's sitting smiling at me here. She's clearly taken off the earphones now, and she's just looked at me as if she's shaking her head at me. The good thing is that we're actually in the ScotSat club. So one of the other things about being independent 12s is I don't have to buy my own tanks. The tanks are actually the club tanks.
Right.
So it means I can unban them if somebody wants a couple of 12s for the weekend. I can just take them off. Good. So that's the other way. The other reason for not going to a manifold is I use club cut tanks. Not many people. Most folk in the club like to dive in 15s anyway. Yeah. So they're not that fussed really about the 12s. So they usually just stay on my rig anyway. But that's good. That's the other reason for not going to it. But, don't say that too loudly.
Well, you might have a twin set coming for Christmas now.
Aye, I said that as well to I think it was Andy for the GUE crowd. He says, "Oh, why don't you come and And I'm like, "Yeah, I can't afford all that new kit, And he's like, but there's a guy," and I'm like, "Yeah." Does that new kit come with a divorce settlement on top of that as well? So it's like, the new kit plus the divorce settlement, because I think that's what will be coming next.
It is crazy how much you can spend. That said, what kit do you use for making your BBC stuff, or for anything? Like, what's your cameras?
So all the BBC stuff is currently done in a GoPro. So a GoPro Hero 7, right. I think. Hero 7 Black. So all of that's done on that. The actual on the surface filming is done with a DSLR. So kind of started over lockdown, kind of getting into photography a little bit.
Yeah.
And again, let's be fair here. When I say getting into photography, I mean I bought a more expensive camera, and I still do the same thing as I've done before, as point and shoot. I put it onto auto and just see what happens. So I use a Canon 250D DSLR, and I bought like a wee cheap microphone off Amazon. And I've got a kind of wide angle lens that I use for when I'm out in the hills, hill walking. So it takes in obviously the kind of, is it the vista you call it? The landscape. Yes, the vista. That's a photography term. So I use the kind of wide angle lens, and I use that for the talkie bits. And Shut up.
What's
She's
she saying?
She's going, the talky bits, you idiot. I love you too, dear.
You know, this stuff's not coming out. I'm not editing this out. This is
No,
gold.
I bet you don't. So for pictures underwater, because again, I like taking pictures underwater. Don't ask me anything technical about them. I know fuck all about taking pictures underwater. I've just actually upgraded it to. I used to use the GoPro in video, and then it was actually Lauren, another dive buddy, who says, "Look, video things, and then just screen grab it," which is really good. But what I found the problem with the GoPro is it's got like is it the focal length? The focal length, is that what you call it? The bit where like when you put it too close in it goes all fuzzy. Is that what it is? I found that was quite difficult. So I spoke to a couple of guys that take photographs up here. A guy, James Lynett, who I think I kind of spoke to you about. He does photography. He's phenomenal. And he had recommended the Canon camera. It's a wee G9. So it looks like a wee pocket camera.
Yeah.
And Steve Metcalf, Alpha Marine Photography.
All right.
Really, really good. He was great. So I was asking advice from him, and eventually got a second hand one of these Canon G9X with a fantasy housing and stuff. It looked really professional. I don't know how to fucking use it. I still put it in auto and I just press click and see what happens. But the photographs come out quite nice. And it's a hobby. It's probably never going to be a career, but I enjoy it. And as I said, I don't smoke, I don't drink, and I don't gamble. So I'd rather put my money into something like that.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look through your Instagram now, assuming these are your pictures that you put on, they're flipping good, some of them.
Some of them are absolute shite. My colleagues at work have said that they're going to mute me on Facebook now, because if they see another fucking photo of a crab, they're going to get a crab and fling it at me. But yeah, I just snap away at things and just hope for the best.
Have you done much editing on these then, or is this just?
There is a little bit. Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say, "Oh no, that's exactly how they come out." There is a bit of editing in them. Yeah, just Adobe Lightroom. I use
the same. Yeah,
I'll be honest. Again, I know nothing about it. All I do is I pull the slide
stuff until you find it looks good.
Exactly, that's it. I think I quite enjoy it as well. You enjoy doing things like that and just working stuff out for yourself.
Yeah,
I don't like people not teaching me. I don't like people telling me to do things. I like to find it out myself. I mean, there's some good ones. There's some really shite ones. Do you know what I found? There's one, I don't know if you've seen it yet. It's the one of like the fireworks and enemy.
Yeah, that's the one that drew my eye straight away. It's beautiful.
The one that looks like I almost see a face in it.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. The crab just underneath it.
Yeah, I didn't see that until I got back. So I didn't actually see this on the dive. It was only when I got back on the shore and I was looking at my phone, I'm like, holy fuck, that looks amazing. Yeah. Who took that photo? And it was like, well, I took it, obviously. In fact, I had a few words with another, shall I say, I'll just say diver in Scotland who decided to post that picture like a couple of weeks ago as if just done a night dive, such and such, look at some of the stuff that we saw. And it was my fucking photo. And I'm like, hold on a minute. Thanks for giving me the credit there, pal. I mean, I'm not precious about it. If somebody wants to use it, fair play, go for it. But, don't...
Is this someone you know?
Yeah.
All right, that's all right then.
Not someone I haven't spoken to for a very long time, and I just thought, oh, no, that's not right. Yeah. Don't do that. But I just point and shoot and hope for the best, to be quite honest.
I'll tell you, you've got one here. It's got, I think they're called a southpaw hermit crab.
If you say so.
Yeah. And the reason they call that is you've got, most crabs have two claws, or lobsters have two claws, don't they, of equal size? Well, this one's just got one that's massive, and one that's like really proper massive, and then the other one's dead weedy. So they call it a southpaw hermit crab. But it's got like this purple fringe around the top of its shell, and then it's bright golden yellow. You can see its eyes perfectly. And from what training I've had, which is only a little bit, as long as you've got the eyes in focus, it's brilliant. But the fact that its shell and that blends into the background. Yeah,
I know the one you're talking. I'm currently looking at my own Instagram to see the one. I had no idea. Do you know, I never noticed that about the claw. Yeah. See, now that you've said it, I'm just looking at it. That's actually pretty impressive.
Yeah,
That's
it's a really good picture, that.
Do you know, I just quite enjoy taking photos. It's something that I do. I mean, folk, even my dive buddies get fed up. Oh, Christ, he's taking another fucking photo of a dog.
I'll be going through all your Instagram now. Just click, 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 click.
There's some really nice ones. There are some nice ones. There's some absolutely terrible ones as well. For every nice photo there is, there's about 300 crap ones as well.
Tell me about it. Could you imagine back in the day shooting with film? So you get like 35, 36 exposures, and you don't even know whether one of them is good.
No, I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. We actually, so I've been diving with Lauren for the past. Well, Lauren's how should we put it? She's had to adopt me at the moment. Rachel just kicks me out the door sometimes and says, "Right, who's taking them diving this weekend?" And Lauren seems to be the poor sod that's like got the short straw.
Yeah.
But she's a marine biology student.
Right.
She's been doing some. She was meant to be in Thailand doing the studies for her degree on divers' effect on the dive sites.
Yeah.
So she's ended up doing it in Loch Long. So, Thailand to Loch Long, there's not much difference. So when I said that I wanted to help out with it, the idea was Glasgow University would pay for me to go to Thailand and take the photos, not that I would end up in Loch Long in the freezing cold fucking waters of Scotland. So we spent the last 6 dive days taking photos of quad rats, and I must say, so she's laying out like a 15-metre transect line, and then she's kind of laying out quad rats every metre. We're taking 6 photos at every metre point. I tell you something, taking those photos, it might be cold and it might be a pain in the backside by the time you get to the kind of second and third dive of the day.
Yeah.
But it teaches you your buoyancy oh my God, it really teaches you to control your buoyancy. And I've found that it's taking photographs, you've got to have, your buoyancy's got to be on point.
It's funny, I went on a course, I'll not say what agency, I'll not say the company that I went with, but needless to say, by lunchtime we'd walked off the course. And when we turned up, I'd already had a conversation with him on the phone. What am I going to get from this? What are you going to teach on this? How is it going to be run? Because I knew how to use my camera. I just wanted more time in the water. I've been taught on dry land how to use it in manual and adjust different settings to get a different background or
what you're looking for. Yeah.
So we got there, and there was about 6 people on the course, and he was also running a rec course. It was at Cape and Ray. So he was running the rec intro to rec, I think it was, or something like that, specialty, as they call them, around the big plane. So we were going to go and take photographs of these divers doing whatever and bits of the plane. So when we opened up the back of our van, and you could see we've got jet fins, we're diving on a wing and a twin set, and we pull out a proper camera, and you could see we weren't needing much help getting kitted up. He kind of looked at they looked at each other and kind of went, oh, they probably don't need what we're going to teach them, but never decided to tell us that. Then when we got in the water, it was so basic. I mean, it was a good course if you don't know anything. I'm not knocking that. But when we got in the water, the people we were trying to take photographs were all in the sort of vertical plane. Yeah. Doing the stereotypical bottom walker dance. So their viz was horrendous. Whereas me and Ali are just laid there, just hovering, absolutely perfectly still, just waiting for him to keep still so we could take a picture.
Yeah, it's I know what you mean about specialities and it's frustrating sometimes as well. I think again, the best way to learn is just do it. I think that's just the way. I mean, you're talking about use it in manual and stuff like that. I'm so lazy that I just keep it in auto all the time. I'm not even going to sit and say, "Oh, I know how to do that." And,
well, I don't. I just was lucky enough to have someone to talk me through it almost straight away.
Yeah.
Rather than, have to find somebody. I knew somebody that could. So the fact that they could meant that I would. But what I was trying to get at is, I think buoyancy control should be taught day one.
Well, so what you're saying is, I keep coming back to Scott and Ali at West Coast Diving. They've just opened their kind of dive centre as a raid centre.
Yeah.
and I'm listening to all the courses that they're talking about doing with RAID now. I hadn't really heard of RAID until then, and listening to what they're talking about, how they're going to teach their open water, their basic ticket, things I've got from the start. They're getting their folk into a wing. They're getting them into like proper, really good kit, really good dry suits. They're going to be teaching buoyancy is the number one thing. Everything's kind of done in a kind of a hover position, and you're thinking that's how diving really should be taught, because buoyancy is everything. Now, buoyancy is not easy. I'm 250 odd dives in, and there's still days where I am fucking awful, absolutely awful, and I even that's probably more often than not, actually, to be honest with you. But some of the kind of newer divers coming in, it's not their fault. They just haven't maybe necessarily
it's the instructor, isn't it?
They haven't had that onus put onto you need to get yourself nice and flat, because once you get your buoyancy, your air consumption starts to get better, and you start to enjoy it a little bit more. When you're diving, feet down, the kind of walking bit, it's not that enjoyable. But then again, it comes back to what's right for you. Some people do find it more enjoyable and easier to dive like that. But that's fine if you've taught them other ways of doing it. It's when that's the only way they know. The feet down kind of doggy paddling type thing is if that's the only way they know. It's about showing people different ways of doing things and the right ways of doing it as well, and then let them make their own decision.
Couldn't agree. I mean, I've been lucky enough to come through a RAID background,
right?
And Ollie, the lad I interviewed last week, he went out last Sunday, I think it was. We talked quite a lot about the sort of mental preparation that you go through as a RAID training student, how they get into your psyche of that, and having come through that, I've seen that we spent at least a day talking about hows and whys and whats and what fors. But then spent the rest of the course was just getting me in that nice horizontal plane, very still and comfortable and stable. I think the reason it doesn't work for club diving or agency diving that are paying, you've only got a limited amount of time to teach a number of skills, and then it's see you.
Yeah, you're right.
And it's taught as a specialty, isn't it?
I find that you're right. I did a nitrox course with the RAID, and even the nitrox course with RAID was so in depth. And I was on a dive site with the guys. I was diving with the club guys, but the other guys who RAID were there, and they were going through everything they were going to do. And I was listening into their briefing, and I was thinking, wow, our briefing was right. Body checks, right, we're going to go out to the reef, out to the right, back to the left, maximum depth 20 metres, maximum time 50 minutes, turn the dive at 100 bar, right, back in. Whereas the RAID guys were really getting into kind of in depth, right, we're going to do this, and then we take a bearing and go there, and I'm thinking, actually, when you start to think about what you're doing, sometimes the briefings that you do and the things that you do as a club maybe isn't quite enough for you've got to remember that this scuba diving, we're in an environment that we shouldn't be. There probably needs to be a little bit more to it than just let's go right and we'll come back left. Keep the ball in the right and keep it in the left coming back.
Yeah,
I think sometimes there's a couple of courses for RAID that I've kind of looked at and thought I quite fancy that. The full face mask one's one that I really quite fancy trying that out.
Yeah.
Asking advice to folk. That's one of the such a good thing about divers. It's quite a close knit community. Now, don't get me wrong, there is plenty of politics in diving, as there is everywhere in the world. There's always somebody looking for a bitch about somebody else, and let's be fair here, I'll hold my hands up. I can do it as well sometimes. But if you ask a question, you'll always get somebody giving you an answer.
Yeah.
And you'll always get recommendations, and somebody will always say, I know somebody that can do that. And it's having the, hold your hands up and go, right, I don't know anything about this, so can somebody help me out? What I find is there's quite a macho side to certainly male divers, where it's like, who can dive the deepest and who can stay the longest and all that shite. I just can't be bothered with that at all. Yeah. But when you ask the questions and just admit, look, I'm not very good at this, my buoyancy's not great, so what can I do to improve it? So I used to dive on Sea Wing Novas I would not touch anything else other than the Sea Wing Novas. And kind of like my kind of buddies and Lauren and Scott and Ali used to say, look, you're kicking up the shit here. And I'm like, I know, but I like these. And they're like, look, no, come on, look, let's try and fix it. So they take the time and say, look, let's fix your weights a little bit. Let's take out, let's move this about a bit. Right, okay. We're still going kind of like feet down slightly.
Yeah.
Wouldn't try a pair of RK3s. So I was like, right, okay. Put them on for the first time. You think, oh, these are awful. Oh no, never diving with these. Bugger that. I've since never taken them off. They are the best things ever. Honest to God, the Sea Wing Novas I had to put on once again because somebody were borrowing mine or something. So I thought I'll just fire these on. Oh God, no, never get back again. And it's finding things. It's listening to other people and taking advice from other people. Don't be afraid to turn around and say, "Hey, I'm not very good at this. I need a hand." And I think that if you ask for help, there's always somebody in the dive community that's going to give you that. And it's about networking. You said it earlier about, speaking to people and getting to know people. It's the best way to get your name out there and to build a kind of rapport with folk.
And to be fair, it's so easy now because 10 years ago, if you want to be in the telly or have some limelight or do something more exciting, the ways to get in amongst that crowd were so limited. Now, I've literally paid £100 to start a podcast. Obviously, a few more £100 having the technology to do it.
Aye.
But I'm now reaching out to people, and people are happy to come on and talk and tell me.
And it doesn't have to be. Do you know the other thing that I really, really enjoy about yourself and the podcast that you do? It's normal people as well.
Yeah.
So it's not just people people that are doing exceptional things. It's folk like myself who I'm not a diving instructor. I'm not taking part in massive expeditions. It's people that just enjoy diving and have experiences that you can say, look, I'm not anything special, but I enjoy it, and this is why I enjoy it.
But you're creating a means of someone else doing what you're doing, or showing that there is a way. If you aren't this and you aren't that, but you still be able to do this and do that.
That's kind of my... because that is the idea behind it, because let's be completely frank here, right? Rachel and I are not exactly adventure athletes, right? We are both slightly heavier than we would like to be. We're working on it. We're going to the gym. We'll not mention the fact that we watched Bake Off last night and ate 2 Empire biscuits each and that, right? But we'll skip over that, edit that part out. But what we kind of tend to say is, look, and one of the kind of key messages is, and I don't like the whole quotes and shit like that, but one of the big thing that we've always said is an adventure doesn't have to be an expedition. And that comes to diving, and it comes to hill walking, it comes to any bit in life. It doesn't have to be this massive multi-day or hugely deep dive or, extended period of time dive.
Yeah.
It can be that 5-10 minute walk or 15-minute walk. It can be that 6 metre dive with the seals. It could be that 6 metre dive that we did off the coast near us after lockdown. We literally, I don't think we got below 6 metres, and we just spent 50 minutes in amongst the kelp, and it was the most amazing dive that we had for such a, after lockdown.
Yeah.
If I can do this, and if we can do this, then anybody can do it. All right, maybe not anybody can do scuba diving. If you're scared of water, don't do scuba diving. It's not about the diving. It's not about the hill walking. It's about just getting yourself out there and finding something to enjoy that helps. Because both Rachel and I do suffer from anxiety. We're both in medication. I'm taking antidepressants, and it took a long time to accept that. But one of the things that I've found helping is these small wee things, and if I can do it, then anybody can. You don't have to be climbing Ben Nevis every weekend, or going to Kilimanjaro, or going and diving all these caves, etc. Find something that works for you, and that's kind of where we come from. It's not about doing something exceptional. It's about doing something that's good for you. And those small adventures can actually be, it sounds really cheesy, doesn't it? But it can be life-changing. You don't have to have these massive expeditions to have a life-changing moment.
Well, the amount of people I've seen local to us during the proper lockdown that we had in the summer,
Yep.
that were going out in their hour of being able to walk. They've lived in the village I live in
Yep.
for 20 or 30 or maybe all their life.
And they're finding things never know.
They could just go a different direction every morning or every afternoon and coming back with these photos on, not necessarily trying to sell themselves on Instagram, but coming back going, I didn't know that this was there.
We've got so we're lucky where we stay. We're not in a big city. We're in a kind of small town, and we have got some kind of bit of countryside. Nothing special at all, right? And you come out our door, and there's a kind of a cycle path that goes to the next town, and we can cycle all the way to the next town. But what we've also got is we've got an old munitions factory, believe it or not, across the river. You go along the cycle path, you can go across, and we ended up exploring that, and it's like, fucking hell, this is it. Just to point out, all explosives have been removed and all that. And you can go through it, and it's unbelievable what is on your doorstep. I mean, even for us who say, oh, it doesn't have to be an adventure to be an expedition, even we were finding things that, as I said earlier, we tend to go out the door and get in the car and drive for half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour to get there. When you just open the door and just step out the door and just have a look, you think, wow. And those hour walks in the lockdown had a massive effect for us. We were going, fucking hell, I bought a pair of running shoes. Jesus Christ, I've never done running in my life, and I did couch to 5k. I mean, that quick, and I did manage it. Believe it or not, I did manage it. If you asked me to do 5k now, I'd probably throw up by the time we got to the end of the drive. But, it's these wee things that you just think small changes make a big difference. And when I was really struggling at first, that was really what really helped. We went for a couple of walks at night and just went, right, you know what? Work's done, dinner's had, let's not sit in front of the telly, let's just go for a walk.
Yeah.
That was amazing. And the diving, when I eventually plucked up the courage to go back to diving, because it took a long time. I mean, I was out of the water for a good 3 or 4 months, which for me is quite a long time.
Yeah.
And I just refused point blank to go. I was finding excuses not to go diving. I was like, no, I can't go this weekend. And then when I finally went back, I'm like, yeah, this is it. This is. I'm enjoying this again. This is. Why did I stop doing it? But when you get yourself into that kind of mindset, and I didn't have any reason to be anxious. There's no. I said that kind of before you. There is no trigger for me. It was just a realization that this is what I've got. So it was difficult at the start, but talking about it helps. And a couple of people. I wrote an article for Trail magazine actually about it, and I got a couple of messages from people saying, I'm in the same position as you. Thanks very much for sharing it. And I'm like, no, it's about when you talk about things, you realise you're not the only person. When I finally admitted to one of my friends that I was on antidepressants, she's turned around to me and went, I've been on antidepressants for 6 months. And I went, I didn't even know you had any problems. And she's like, no, I know. She says, but why did you not tell me about it? And she says, well, why did you not tell me about it? You've been on them for 3 months.
Yeah.
Why are you just telling me now? And I'm like, no. Yeah, that makes sense. It's crazy. Life is crazy. But yeah, if we can do things, then anybody can do it. And that's the way we kind of think about it. At least try to anyway.
Just got to stay positive, and you push out that positive mental attitude. And
you do, and I'm not the most positive person in the world. I don't, I'm a grumpy bastard at times, as the kids will tell you, but I'm not actually. It's a kind of persona that you build up.
Yeah.
And I like a moan. I'm never happier than when I'm moaning, kind of thing. Right. But I love a moan. I could do it if there was an Olympic sport for moaning. Fuck me, I'd be the best in the world at it. I would be unbelievable. I'd be top. I'd be the Usain Bolt of moaners. I am so good at it. Real. And that's where it was kind of always accepted as Ross is, it's just Ross being Ross. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And we eventually got to the point where it was like, right, this is more than just Ross being Ross now. So diving has been a huge. Rachel's sitting behind me going, and about a year of me telling you as well. So for a year she's been telling me that she had been telling me to go to the doctors and speak to the doctor. There was the one point when I was kind of doing my medical for ScotSAC. We've got to do a medical every year, medical questionnaire, and the question comes up of, are you taking any any regular medication. So I obviously had to put in my antidepressants, and I just got this letter back that says rejected across it.
Really?
Fuck. Oh my God. So eventually I ended up talking to one of the diving doctors, and it was great. He was absolutely brilliant on the phone. And we sat for just kind of similar to what we're doing now.
Yeah.
We just had a conversation. And he says, right, so why are you on these? Okay. And have you ever had like the kind of suicidal thoughts? And have you done this? Have you done that? And we just had this conversation. It had been about 6 months, 8 months maybe, since I've been on them. And I'd been diving, you know, in between that. So I was like, fuck, why am I suddenly now not allowed to dive? I now realise that I should have put it into I should have told them at the time.
Mm. And
eventually he says, no, that's fine. He says, no, you're fine to dive. He says, I wanted to check before we just accepted it. Because obviously, you know, and I'd rather we did that. Seeing that big stamp that says rejected, you were like, oh my God, somebody's just taken away that one thing that was
that
really
crutch almost, yeah.
But it was great. I could not thank the doctor enough for taking the time. And plus, my own doctor himself was a diver. So when I went to speak to him about my issues and stuff like that, he said, right, what do you like doing? What is it you do? And I'd said to him, scuba diving. He said, right, okay. He says, right, well, let's talk about this. It wasn't a kind of blanket, you're not going scuba diving kind of thing. It was, let's just talk it through and let's see where we are. So it was good. No, I've found that, and these things are a crutch. Do you know what I mean? They are. Mm. But again, it's a bit like the scuba diving for me. That's what I use as my kind of escape from reality.
Yeah.
But the idea is that's what works for me. Find something that works for you, sort of thing. So obviously, folk that are listening to this will be divers, so they'll be like, yeah, anxiety. But when I'm trying to talk to folk out with it, you know, talking to friends and even kids at school sometimes as well that are saying that they're stressed and stuff. You say, find something that you enjoy. You know, it could be scuba diving, it could be running, it could be fucking knitting for all I care. It's something for you that you take that 30 minutes, whatever it is, hour every night, and you just switch off. Rachel loves to read. She's sitting here reading and listening to my shite patter. You know, it's fine. It's about that. It's really about that. That's the kind of message that we try to kind of put out. It's we're nothing exceptional. We're nothing special. And it's not. You're not saying that for somebody to turn and say, "Oh, but you are," and you're doing this. It's not about that. It's just genuine. Look, two normal people, a normal guy wants to go scuba diving. That's all it's about. It's the same with the videos for the BBC. It's not. As I said that earlier, there's a narcissistic side to it. See your own face, but it is about, look, if I can do this, anybody can do this. There's nothing stopping you, really.
Good note to end on that, mate.
Yeah, I think so. Hopefully.
I think we're at 2 hours now.
I know we were only trying to keep it to an hour. Sorry, but it's do you know what it is? It's when it's yourself. You make it dead easy to talk to. Do you know you're making what you're doing is making it really easy for folk to talk. I was dead nervous today about coming on. I'm like, shit, what am I going to say? What the fuck am I going to say? I'm a boring fuck. You know, it's when, you know, it's yourself. It's things like this that I think will help raise the profile of diving as well. You know, it's not just about other divers. People will like maybe listen to it and maybe say, oh, by the way, have you tried diving? Oh, I want to have a listen to this. Here's oh, I've never liked water and stuff. Well, go and listen to the one. Was it Laura? Isn't it?
Yeah.
Go and listen to her about the psyche and the psychological things about diving. No, thank you so much for having me on. I'm sorry I've kept it so long.
Mate, no, I'd sooner put an hour and 40-minute episode out because it's warranted, and someone take 3 days to listen to it. I don't get a lot of feedback, but what feedback I do get is always as positive as what you've just said. Compare my podcast to the next guy's. There's no way, other than you might say, well, I only listen to you and something else.
Yeah, and that is literally true, because I'm not a big one for podcasts. I know people really, really into them. It's just not, it's not something that I've ever, that's not true. I've listened to 3. I did listen to Rachel knows, she's smiling at me now. You ever listened to My Dad Wrote a Porno?
No.
Oh my God. Have you not done it? You have to listen to My Dad Wrote a Porno.
Right.
Funny, honestly, no. If there's one podcast you're going to listen to, go and listen to My Dad Wrote a Porno. It is the funniest fucking thing ever. Make sure you're listening to it with no young ears in the room and nobody that you would get embarrassed hearing it with.
I tend to put headphones in at bedtime, say goodnight to her, roll over and listen to that.
Oh, honest to God, we listen to it during our road trips. You might not get to sleep. You'll be yourself laughing. It is so funny. That's really the only three. I think actually podcasts for diving is something that is really good because there is plenty of podcasts about the outdoors and about adventures, but there's not a huge amount for scuba diving as such. You're always looking to do better. So I do the same as well. I'll be quite honest with you. I do the same as well when the views, the BBC videos go up. I can see quite quickly how many views it's had.
Yeah.
So the first video will get like 140,000 views, and I'm like, whoa, fuck me. And then the next one get like 100,000. I'm like, yeah, this is great. And then the next one get 20,000, and you're like, what the fuck?
What have I done wrong?
Aye, you go and compare yourself to others. It's hard not to. In a world of social media, of likes, people don't say they look at their likes, but we do. Let's be honest. We do look at our likes, and we do want people to go and look at the stuff, and you do want people to go and listen to your podcast. Why else would you do it? Yeah. At the end of the day, that's what we're looking for. There's a lot of people that are going like, oh, I don't do this for the likes, and I don't do this. Do you know something, actually? See, when I was really at my shittest with the anxiety, that's what got me going out. I actually looked at my Instagram and went, I've not posted a photo of a hill for a while. Fuck it, let's go and do a hill walk. Yeah. So I want to take a photo for Instagram. Now, is that the right way to think about going out?
Got you out the house, didn't it? Got you off the couch.
It got me out the house and it got me off the couch. Exactly. And it was the same with diving. I eventually went, fuck, I've not put a picture of diving up. Fuck it, let's go diving. Social media is terrible at times, but it's also a really good way. As you said, 10 years ago, to get on social media, there was no social media, but to get noticed and to connect with people, it just wouldn't have happened. Whereas now, you're connecting with folk from across the world. I was talking to a girl from Sweden about diving this morning.
Yeah.
Talking to is it Ranva, the worthwhile element. I was listening to hers a few weeks ago as well, and that was really, really good. You network with all these people, and again, it's all about asking for advice. Keep coming back to my anxiety. Nobody knew. Everyone else just accepted it as Ross being Ross. And it's amazing what people can hide. I mean, when my friend turned around and says I'm on antidepressants as well, I was completely shocked.
Yeah.
Whereas if you look at me, I've got no reason for it, right? The way I've got a kind of almost like a guilt to my anxiety. What the fuck do I have to be anxious about, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, yourself was in the military, right? There's people that are in the military that have seen things, have had their legs blown off, right? You've got people who are doctors who have to deal with life and death every day. These are people who, I don't want to say deserve...
Stereotypically would have an issue.
Yes. Whereas I've got fuck all. I genuinely, I've got a house, I've got the greatest wife ever. I'm saying that now because she can hear me and I'll get proud. Right? I've got a family that support me. I've got a career that I love and enjoy. So what the fuck have I got to be anxious about? So eventually I kind of sat down and I said, right, listen, I'm on antidepressants and I've got anxiety. And she's like, sorry? I went, well, I've got anxiety. She went, no, you don't. And I went, like, no, I do. She said, but you'd never know. And I went, no, I know. Because I'm 28 years old, I'm 29 years old, and I'm an adult. But it's not this uncommon thing, and it's amazing what people can hide on the surface. I had it for years. You really wouldn't, and it's what goes on in the background that's worrying as well. One of the boys I went to school with took his own life about a year ago now, and he was the nicest boy you'd ever met. He was a police officer. He was always dead happy. Nobody saw it coming. And he was out about 2 or 3 days with mates for school. And they had seen 2 or 3 days before and he was absolutely fine. And then 2 or 3 days later, he took himself away and he chucked himself into a river. And he knew what he was doing. He knew he couldn't swim. He knew that nobody was going to get to him in time. He knew what he was doing. And you think, holy shit, that's somebody that I sat next to for years and nobody knew about it. So I think, it's scary what goes on behind closed doors and in people's minds. That really concerns me.
I tell you what is mad. I wanted to start this podcast, much like I was saying about Jason Fox. He talks about the mental and physical resilience because he's a big mental health ambassador, isn't he? And And I kind of tried to direct a lot of the topics that way.
Yep.
But you've got to assume a couple of things. Well, number one, really, you've got to find someone that's got something to talk about.
Yep.
Number two, that they're willing to, and then be sort of well versed enough to discuss it. Whereas what you're talking about, I've probably got in many different aspects. Sometimes maybe more, sometimes probably less. And it's just a conversation to say this is normal. This is how you are. Is exactly how I am, and probably most other people are at different levels on different days.
And for different reasons as well. I mean, everyone's got their own triggers and everyone's got their own problems, and that doesn't mean that your problem. What you've got to accept as well, and I'm saying this now because I've kind of learned it myself. Although your problem is your problem, to somebody else it might be quite a small problem, but to you it's a big problem, and that's okay because everyone's different. And I've had to accept that myself. I mean, it's quite horrible. I don't know. I call it imposter syndrome kind of thing. You feel it's almost like I don't deserve to be anxious. And the other thing is mental health is coming to the forefront now, and a lot of people sometimes see it as attention seeking, and that's the other thing that's always at the back of your head. You don't want to look like somebody that's looking for sympathy, because the last thing I want is sympathy. I don't want leeway. I don't want sympathy. Sometimes I like people to know, so that if like I zone out, it's not because I'm not listening to you, it's not because I'm bored with you, it's just because sometimes I just don't, you kind of go into yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
But you do. It's imposter syndrome. I think that's what it is, and more people probably have it. I don't even know if it's a thing, by the way. I genuinely don't know if it's a thing, but it's just something in my head. I know what I mean. Don't know if everyone else knows what I mean. It's scary. It is kind of scary sometimes. Listen, if you are ever up here, right, and this is not one of the just and then if you are ever up, you are both more than welcome. We have more than enough. We've got a spare bed there, and you're more than welcome to come up to the sea lochs, and I'll show you the delights of Loch Long.
Honestly, I will take your
What I would request though is you don't bring COVID. You Southerners fucking riddled with it. Don't bring your COVID up here.
Right, mate, I'll get off because I've got to watch Bake Off from last night and have another brew. I'm parched.
Right, well, I'll not tell you who won it because we watched that.
Well, that's if she hasn't already watched it. I don't know. She might have.
Well, you have been on like nearly 2 hours now, so that's your own fault if it is.
Well,
over 2 hours apparently, I've just been told.
So it'll be alright. Right,
anyway, thank you very much for having me on, and I'll speak to you.
Mate. I'll speak to you soon. Cheers.
Speak to you later. Bye.
Bye-bye. So that brings us to an end of episode 46 with my friend Ross McLaren. Links to all the things we discussed are in the podcast notes. You've been listening to Are You a Scuba Diver Fancy a Brew podcast with me, Andy the Northern Diver. You can find more scuba related content on my YouTube channel. The link is in the podcast notes. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing and leaving us a 5-star review. And to become a patron of the podcast, visit www.patreon.com/Fancy a Brew. There you'll be able to see the different levels of subscription and how to join the Fancy a Brew community. If there's someone or something you'd like us to discuss, please let us know via our Facebook page. Thanks for listening. See you on the next one.